Hi there guys, and welcome back to the channel, where today you're joining me as we look at a Land Rover Discovery for GS. So this is the 2012 model. It does have the 3-litre SDV6 which produces 255 brake horsepower, and it is also paired with the later 8-speed semi-automatic gearbox. But of course, being the GS spec, it doesn't have every extra on it. So we'll take a look and see if it still has its place within the market. Starting with the exterior of the vehicle, this particular GS does have the additional factory extra of metallic paint finished in orchidy grey. Has to be said, it does look very smart. You wouldn't necessarily notice it was a GS other than the badge. There's nothing in particular that stands out. And this one also has the standard 19-inch alloy wheels with the Pirelli Scorpion tyres all around. Moving on to the interior, the only other additional extra that this GS has is the leather seats. Everything else is as it would ordinarily come. With the GS, you of course still get the same legroom, the same practicality as you would across the various different models, which does offer plenty of legroom, a good comfortable rear space that you can easily get 3 adults across the back, and of course ISOFIX fittings and the full 7 seats. So in 2012, with the Land Rover Discovery 4, there were 4 different specification tiers that you could get as your starting basis, and then of course you could add the additional extras that you wanted from there. You get the GS, which is like the starter, then you get the XS, the HSE, and the HSE Luxury. And as you can imagine, the further you go up the list, the more that comes as standard. So the GS, the biggest thing that it's missing is the touchscreen multimedia system. That's something you notice straight away when you get in. And it still has a screen that will display information, but it's certainly not as much information as you get on the touchscreen media system. You can still get Bluetooth connectivity for both your telephone and also your audio. You get your radio stations, you still get DAB, but it doesn't give you satellite navigation. It also doesn't give you the 4x4 information, and you don't get the option of a reversing camera with this screen either as part of the GS package. You still get the rear parking sensors, which this one has, and then of course you can have the additional extras if you wanted. So as standard, the GS even comes with the cloth interior. This particular one that I'm in today has got the leather, and I got to be honest, that is an option that I would have to have. The other bits though, I could live without. The reason being is you can get all of these fancy phone holders now, and Google Maps is what most people use, especially in modern cars, even when you've got Apple CarPlay and the Android Link. So as much as obviously it's not good to keep your eyes off the road, if you've got a nice sensible car mount, you still have satellite navigation. In order to have a higher specification 2012, and if you were to try and get a like for like, you would of course have to spend more to do so. So for example, this is a 2012 Land Rover Discovery 4 GS, and it's got 93,000 miles on it. I've got this one advertised on Auto Trader at 13,995, and that gives it a great price. And this particular one's been really well looked after. It's only had 2 private owners from new, and it's got a full extensive service history throughout, including a recent cam belt change. It also has the matching Pirelli tyres around, so it's really good value for money in comparison to what you'd pay for a HSE with similar kind of miles and similar kind of, well, cared for, if you like, in terms of and previous ownership and everything like that. So for example, a HSE that I have recently sold, which was again a 2012, that was a 1 owner from new, and that had done about 85,000 miles, so slightly less miles but nothing too notable, and I'd sold that one for 17,495. So we're talking a £3,500 difference to have between the GS and what the HSE offers. And it all depends on personal preference as well, because of course in the HSE you do get the 3 sunroofs, you of course get the touchscreen multimedia system, you get the Harman Kardon sound system, the xenon lights with daytime running lights in LED, the power fold mirrors. The HSE, there's no getting around it, comes with that much more of a specification. But if you're not necessarily bothered about those things, then you could get yourself quite a saving by going for the GS. And in terms of drivetrain and chassis and all of that, it's all exactly the same. As mentioned, this has the 3-litre V6 SDV6 producing 255 brake horsepower. They share the same gearbox, which is the 8-speed, a far better gearbox than what the TDV6 came back with. You still get the paddle shift controls, you still get all of the air suspension, the terrain response and everything like that. So the actual experience of your driving in terms of your inputs and everything like that is exactly the same whether you have the GS or the HSE Luxury. So I guess what the question is where does the GS sit? It still gives you a very good level of specification if you're not too bothered about having a touchscreen media system. You still get your dual climate control air conditioning, you still get your Bluetooth telephone controls on the steering wheel, you still get obviously your lights, your mirrors and everything like that, all easy to access and automatic and everything like that. But you know, it all depends what you're looking for from your car. I think personally, if you were to have a really well looked after GS at 13,995, to find a HSE at the same kind of price bracket, you've either got to go to the older TDV6, which has the 6-speed stick shift and the slightly older interface and everything like that, or you've got to go massively more on the miles. And as much as I don't shy away from high mileage cars as long as they've been well looked after, it does of course impact the value as you come to resell it too. I definitely think the GS has its place in the market, and I think this particular one is really solid to drive. It's still a very quiet cabin area throughout. You still get the basic necessities which I would really want, and I'm not sure I'd necessarily miss it too much. I think the only thing I would potentially miss would be the heated seats, as this one doesn't have that, and maybe the option of the rear camera, because I do a fair bit of towing, so it's quite handy to come back on it. But other than that, I would say, you know, I wouldn't disregard the GS at all. They're still very, very comfortable, and they're still giving you the basis of a very good car. So I sell quite a lot of Land Rover product, and I get people asking me all the time, have you gone mad? It even comes from the MOT station that I use. But the honest truth is I have full confidence in the Land Rover product. There is so much hate towards them online, and I love to watch the car review videos myself, and you can't help but look in the comments whenever you've seen something Range Rover or Land Rover, and all it is obviously full of people saying, oh, you know, it's not going to make it to the nearest garage. But the honest truth is, I think it depends on how well it's been maintained and how well it's been looked after. They are fully loaded with a fair few extras that you don't necessarily get on a normal car. And of course, with more things on it, there is more to go wrong. So there's just things you've got to look out for, really. As I say, they come with the air suspension, and not every car would have that. So you do have to maintain, or you do have to look out for certain things on that air suspension. The terrain response program, it's a brilliant system should you ever need to use it, and something that really does give the car its performance. So I'd say again, when looking for these cars, there are certain things that you've got to make sure that they've had done. And there are some big jobs as well that are required. And as long as they've been maintained and as long as they've been kept, I'd honestly take it anywhere. And I think they offer a level of comfort, and the drive is that much better than most cars, that it's definitely worth it. And in my opinion, if you're looking for a car, I always kind of check things. Service history is obviously a given, but things like the tyres, I've mentioned that this one's already got the matching Pirelli tyres all around, which in my mind shows that the previous owner cared for the car. They don't mind going that little bit extra to make sure that the car is up and running in its top form. It's definitely worth doing if you're going to look for these type of cars. As mentioned, when people are buying these cars from me, we of course do our preparations as best as we can, and we always say to people, please, 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 when it's due a service, get it serviced. Use the genuine parts, use a reputable dealership or a reputable garage that you know and trust to kind of look after it, and you really shouldn't have too many problems with it. You know, in terms of what other people say, I'm not disregarding it, they're not a bulletproof manufacturer, they're far from it. But at the same time, I don't think there really are many bulletproof manufacturers out there. I sell quite a lot of cars across all types of different brands, and I wouldn't say the Land Rover was any worse or any better than any of the others. It really does come down to maintenance. And I think, in a personal opinion, I don't think there's another manufacturer out there that will give you this level of comfort when you're driving. You've got a really nice upright position, you've got responsive engine, it's a nice quiet cabin, the gearbox is very good, the towing capabilities are brilliant, which is why I have a Range Rover myself. And with the Range Rover, yes, I wanted to do a bit of everything, which I think is a great all-round vehicle. The Discovery 4 I think is probably more of a workhorse, but again, they really do provide a good level of comfort, a great level of practicality. It does have those 7 full-sized adult seats, and I just think they're definitely worth the investment if it's what you're looking for. If you're looking for an ultra reliable car, then the other thing is go for one that doesn't have all of the luxury comfort features this has, because then there's less to go wrong. But if you're looking for something that gives you a bit of a good all-round vehicle, the Land Rover definitely has its place. And so to round up on the Discovery 4 GS side of things, I'd like to say that it does have its place. I'd rather have the budget of a well-maintained GS, and I think your money is better off spent doing that than you are to find a lesser maintained HSE with twice the amount of miles, or the slightly older TDV6 with the 6-speed. I think it's definitely worth staying that little bit newer with a well-maintained vehicle and sacrificing a little bit of the specification. And of course, if you like the video, please do subscribe, please do like the video, and leave any comments or questions below. Look forward to seeing you soon.